Hello, 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 and welcome back to A Little Birdie Told You. I'm your host, Kristen Knight.
And I'm your host, Kelli Knight.
And we are back yet again with another Red Flags and Icks episode where we are going to be giving an updated version of our Red Flags and Icks because I think some of them have evolved or changed or transformed over time. And we did that a little while ago, and some things have definitely happened. We've had more experiences. So we thought we would give a little more a bit of a detailed red flags version and Icks kind of version on this episode. Icks is something, and it's a term I found out recently. A lot of people hate. People do not like Icks. Especially guys. Guys do not like when we talk about Icks because but let me clarify this. We're not talking about icks like, oh, and they're like icks and ick in itself, using the word ick. Okay, well, great. But icks is not how we, like, the typical generation defines it. I guess we define it a bit different. Kind of like, it's like a bothering little, like, characteristic. Maybe that can be, like,
more
fixed
something that,
or
like,
tweaked.
bothers you.
Yeah, it can bother you, but it's not something that you'll sit there and consider a red flag. Like, I'm going to clarify that right now. And ick's just kind of like an like I'm not too fond of it, but it's not something that I would put in the books as a red flag. You know what I mean? So I'm just going to say that. So if we say an ick, we're not like saying, oh, like the icks that everyone else uses. We're kind of using it as our own term. But definitely we want to talk about the red flags that are in relationships, not the ones maybe that when you're single and you notice a red flag in the talking stage when you're talking to somebody. I kind of want to talk about the red flags in a relationship. Like when you're in a committed relationship with somebody, there's still red flags. There could be red flags that decide to appear during that duration of time. And I want to talk about that a little bit. So Kelli, I'm going to ask you, what's a red flag in a relationship specifically that you think would be considered a red flag, at least? Like something you would think of and you're like, that's a red flag in a relationship.
I would say, like, either one, if you feel like you're putting more effort in, or just in general, you feel their energy kind of pulling off of you.
I definitely think if you're not reciprocating the same amount of energy and you notice you're putting more effort in to the relationship over them putting effort in, it should go back and forth. You should be putting the same amount of effort in, even if maybe you sometimes do little extra things, but overall, the energy putting back into the relationship should be the same. If you notice you're carrying more of the weight than the other person, I would consider that a red flag if it keeps happening. It's reoccurring. Because if you're putting more work in and they're not putting any effort in, a relationship takes two. One shouldn't be doing all the work. So if you're like, and sometimes we get in our heads about that. I think that can be a common thing. But if you think that you're putting in actually a lot of work, like you're always asking, you're always planning, you're always doing this and doing that, and over time you're noticing, dang, it seems like I'm putting in all the work, you're probably right. And that's a red flag, because why is that other person not putting in work? Why is that other person not dedicating time to somebody they're in a committed relationship with?
Like either one, they're giving that attention to somebody else, or two, just in general, like they don't care as much.
Especially it's a red flag if you notice during the beginning stages of that relationship or the talking stages of that relationship, that person
like I've said this before, like a lot of people, when they're in the talking stage, whatever you want to put it as, there's so many different terms for that, but we'll use talking stage. If you're in the talking stage, or you have interest in somebody and they're putting a lot of effort in, and they're like, oh, I want to hang out, I want to do this, do that, and all this stuff. And then the second you, not really the second you get in a relationship, but I would say a month in, they kind of start backing off, not as much putting effort in, just little things like that. And it's
yeah, you notice that sometimes when someone's intentions aren't necessarily pure, they put in effort to get you and to catch you, and then they have you in a committed relationship with them, and then all of that attention, that effort,
oh, it's
is
okay,
gone. Yeah, I
can do what I want.
And don't let someone, the moment you feel like that's happening,
you need to know your worth and be okay, well, I know somebody will actually sit here and want to hang out with me, do this.
So this might be aside from red flags, but it is a red flag if someone does that. And if someone does that, if they all of a sudden you notice they were putting in all this effort, they were planning things, and they always wanted to see you, they wanted quality time, and they loved being around you, and maybe they were texting you first, calling you first, and then all of a sudden you're in a committed relationship with them, and you notice, where did all that go? Now I'm doing all of it. I'm texting first, I'm planning first. Pull back. Watch how fast that person comes running back towards you. Because if you pull back and you decide, okay, I'm not doing it anymore, and they're not going to do it, then who's going to do it? That's why it needs to be reciprocated. Both of you have to be putting in the same amount of effort. And if you feel like they're not putting in the same amount of effort, you pull back and you watch what happens.
Even like if somebody's busy, like you have like how many seconds to even say hi? Like I'm saying, like
2 seconds
in
to
general,
say hi.
if you're busy, text and say that you're busy and that's why you haven't like, you know, been like around or something. Don't sit there and like.
And this leads me into the next red flag in a relationship is when someone does not give you space. And they're clingy.
Oh, yeah.
Because sometimes I think this can go both ways. I'm not going to say it's more lenient towards guys or girls. It can go both ways. But sometimes in a relationship, sometimes people don't give the other person enough space. And some people don't know how to communicate that. And they don't know how to say, I need some space, because they don't want to hurt that person's feelings. And sometimes that can be a red flag when you don't know how to give someone space. I'm not going to say it's like a major red flag or a severe red flag compared to other red flags.
In a relationship, you both need space because it's like, one, you're just going to get tired of each other like really fast. But like, two, it's like you need space in general. Even like in friendships, though, you need space. And that's just something like you need in life.
And I want to put this out there. Every relationship's different. The amount of time someone gets to see the other person and all of that plays a factor in the relationship, essentially. But giving someone space when they ask for space is something that you should do in a relationship. If someone says, I need some space, I need just some time for independence and to be alone for a little bit, and I don't want you texting me or calling me, you should respect that. You should respect someone's boundary. And that's another red flag, is if someone doesn't know how to respect your boundaries. If you have a set of boundaries set and that person decides, I'm not going to respect that. Like if you're a girl or a guy and you simply say something, I don't want this, I don't want to do this, or this is making me uncomfortable, and that person doesn't respect that boundary, that's a red flag. Because in the future, if you have boundaries that you do not want to be crossed quite yet, they might try to push that, and they might try to push past the limit, and that could put you in a very uncomfortable position. And that just shows me that somebody who doesn't respect you as a person to respect your boundaries.
Yeah, like I think I've even like heard somebody say this before, but some people, like, I mean, I feel like it's more, I wouldn't say it's more on the girls' sides, but like them not giving space.
Yeah.
But I mean, I feel
Sometimes
like it's
it
on
can
both
be.
sides, but I feel like it is more on the girls' sides. But like in general, sometimes people are like, oh, give me space, like whatever. And like some girls like don't respect that, and they sit there like when they're like boyfriends trying to like hang out with the boys or whatever, and they're sitting there bugging them. If somebody tells you something, you shouldn't have to tell them twice.
And this is advice for the girls. I'm going to say this right now. Give him space. He shouldn't even have to ask for it. I'm speaking for the guys on this
part.
part.
I feel like you can tell when somebody needs
even though
space.
I'm not a guy, but I'm just saying, you notice when a guy does have his space, he doesn't have to ask for it because you already give it to him, and he's not going to sit there. It's more respectful towards him. You shouldn't have to sit there and be all over him. Don't be clingy on him. Don't give him his freedom. Guys like freedom. Give him his freedom. So if you're a girl in a relationship with a guy, and maybe you have clingy tendencies from past relationships, or maybe just in general you kind of can be like that and you're not intentionally trying to be clingy, or maybe you're not trying to be, like you're not trying to get all up in his business and all of that, but maybe you just have that tendency. I understand that, but just give him space. Trust him. Allow him to go do his thing. If you don't trust somebody, then that's a red flag, because if you can't trust them, I'm going to say that. I feel like from observing a lot of experiences,
you can't trust somebody in the relationship. Like obviously they're not the right person.
I don't think it's the right person. If you're afraid of them cheating on you, if you're afraid of them texting
obviously
someone, all these
it's
different
like
things,
your gut telling you that they probably are doing those things.
Yeah.
So
I believe it's your gut telling you, because you notice the people that are always worried about something, that's when it's true. Or they push that person to doing it because they're constantly telling them, oh, you're doing this and you're doing that, or you cheating on me and this and that. And I think that person ends up saying, well, you know what? I can't deal with this anymore. This is too much on me. You know what I mean? And it pushes them into cheating. So I think that if you're sitting there and you're worried about it, then that's probably likely not the right person for you. And that's a red flag if you have to worry about that. I think when you're worried in a relationship, it's kind of speaking for itself. It's almost like your intuition speaking for itself, saying you're worried about something for a reason. Even if it doesn't appear there's anything to worry about, there might be something to worry about here. So I think that's kind of telling itself. Another red flag I have, this one goes for when you're in a relationship. This one could go both ways, but I think the way that person treats the people that they care about and the people they love. I've said this before, but this one's definitely an important one to me, because when someone claims that they care about certain people, or they have a connection with certain people, or they love certain people, family dynamic, whatever that may be for certain people, because of the fact that everyone has a different family dynamic, a friendship dynamic. But if they talk highly of those people, the way they treat those people is going to show you how they are going to treat you, because you are a person they are supposed to care about, correct? So if they treat their parents badly, and they speak highly of their parents and they love their parents, and all of a sudden they treat them badly, or they treat their friends badly, think about that for a minute and say, how are they going to, this is how they're going to treat me? Even if they're treating you very sweet, or they're treating you in a nice, generous way at the beginning, that doesn't tell you that they're going to treat you like that forever, right? Because sometimes people put on a front, sometimes people put on a facade. So if you notice them around the people that they are around on a regular basis, and they claim they care about those people, and sometimes, I'm not saying everyone's perfect, but I'm saying overall, the way they treat those people is a reflection of how they're going to treat you in the future. So if they're sitting there with their family and they talk really, maybe kind of rude towards their parents, and you're sitting with them and you're like, wow, like this isn't what I expected from them. And then all of a sudden they turn around and they're sweet towards you. Just think about that for a minute. Because I know some people like to say they like when someone's mean to other people and have a soft spot for them, but really, do they have a soft spot for you? Or are they just showing that to you and, projecting this sweet nature? Yeah, sweet nature to you as a facade to keep you drawn in. If the moment someone does that, I would consider that a red flag, especially if they ever say anything verbally abusive towards you, or they're physically abusive. That's a red flag in itself. I shouldn't have to tell you that's a red flag. That's it. Think about the future when I say that, the things that are going to be future outcomes of that situation. What's another red flag you have, Kelly? Maybe in a relationship, or when you're talking to somebody, or an ick, maybe something simple, an ick. I've said this before.
Okay, well, I've said this before.
Okay. Yeah,
we're like offering each other now. All right. Well, if somebody doesn't like open a door for you.
Okay.
I've said this so many times, but if like a guy doesn't open a door for you, like any type of door, I mean, like at all in your relationship, that's a red flag. Like, I mean, yeah, like, we were raised and everything, like.
Yeah. Gentleman behavior.
But I don't know. Like, I feel like every guy should be like that. And if you're not, obviously you don't like respect, like anybody in general. Because I feel like if you're just walking to a door and like, your boyfriend or something doesn't like open the door, that's just weird.
And I agree with this, what you're saying. And I'm not saying that like as a girl, you're capable. If you have 2 arms and 2 legs, you're capable of opening the door for yourself, correct? But I think it's out of the generosity of doing it, and it's like a respectful thing.
Manners,
it's manners, it's gentleman behavior, it's gentleman manners. So I think, and I appreciate that, a guy that's a gentleman, right? We don't want a guy, when we walk up to a door, slamming the door in our face. We don't want that. I don't want that.
I mean, there's no way, like, imagine you were like walking in a restaurant and then like, like they just let the door close on you.
And I think anyone out there, this goes for anyone, whether you're a girl or a guy, you have standards, and you should set those standards. You should never
lower your standards.
Do not lower your standards, please. If you have standards and you say, I want a guy that opens the door for me, I hope you don't want to just date a guy just because he opens the door with you or something, vice versa, whatever. I hope that's not why you're getting in a relationship with them, but I'm saying have a set of standards, and if somebody doesn't meet those standards, and I'm not saying people are perfect, and I'm not saying to have unrealistic standards, but you should value yourself to have standards. You work on yourself, and you know yourself more than anyone ever will. So you should set standards how you want to be in a relationship, and what you see and what you want. I guess that's how you can set your standards on. You know what I mean? Like if you don't want to get in a relationship with someone because they don't embody gentleman behavior, or maybe that can go for a guy too, though, because if you think about it, some guys don't like girls that are, tomboy. They like girls that are more feminine. And, there's nothing wrong with that. We all have a different taste and attraction towards certain people, and there's nothing wrong with that. So I just want to clarify that. But I definitely think gentleman behavior is important.
I would say another one is like if you're not good at communication. Like communication's key in a relationship, but if you're not good at communicating, you don't like know how to talk and like open up to things that are bothering you, things won't work
But
out.
see, that can be very difficult for certain people. And I do think that certain people from previous relationships, or maybe they've never even been taught communication skills and they're not very good with communication. But I do think a relationship does have to have open communication. I do think you need to communicate with that person how you're feeling. Don't bottle up your emotions and expect them to understand emotions that they don't understand. Someone can't understand how you're feeling if you don't tell them. And even if you tell them, you have to make sure you actually clarify it and present it in a way where they understand. You can't just say, oh, I'm feeling this way. Well, why are you feeling this way? And I think that you should support that person and try to come to a level of understanding. Don't argue with the person. Try to understand where they're
Like
coming
some
from.
people, like when somebody's communicating towards you and like telling you maybe something that's bothering them, don't sit there and be like, oh, well, like, I don't care. Put yourself in their shoes. You know what I'm saying? Don't sit there and be like, oh, well, it's about what I think. You know, if it's bothering them, put yourself in their shoes and be like, okay, well, now maybe you'll actually realize that's why it's bothering
don't
them.
become argumentative and argue with them and try to prove a point. Listen. That's one thing I will say is listen. When they have something to say, listen to what they have to say. Even if you don't agree with it, at least listen to try to understand where they're coming from. And then maybe sit down and say, okay, well, this is what I see. And this is my perspective on this situation if you disagree with something. The only way you're going to understand is if you actually listen and openly communicate. You can't just
talk
argue.
about it.
Yeah, so I think if you argue quite frequently, that's not the best thing. And that's a bit of an ick if someone wants to constantly argue with you. I think another ick is, this one might be a little bit lighter than the other ones that we talked about. The guy calls you dude or bro. Okay, I've got a thing for this one. I've said it before because it's the same thing as if a girl calls you girly and you're a guy, okay? Sometimes people like to joke around with that in a relationship, but I definitely think if a guy calls you dude or bro,
It's an ick.
it's a bit of an ick for me. As a friend, sure, call me whatever you want, dude, bro, okay? But if you're dating me or you're in a relationship with me or you even in the talking stage so you want to appear to me romantically, do not call somebody
like,
a girl
I get
dude
it
or
can
bro.
slip out sometimes if you're like maybe like in a group of people, but like if you're just sitting there like hanging out and all of a sudden it like slips out and they call you it and like they don't say anything about it, that's an ick.
It's just a bit, I don't know how to explain it. I guess you could say it's a bit disrespectful, but it also feels very friendly.
Yeah.
It doesn't make you the way that why I'm saying this is, guys, take notes on this. When you say dude or bro to a girl, it makes her perceive you more as a friend than as if like a romantic interest
Yeah,
or
so
partner.
like when you say it, it makes the girl more
That's
feel
why it's a
like
bit of
you're
an
a
ick.
friend.
Yeah.
And like then they're like, okay, well,
like it's almost like like, okay, well, that was very friendly. I kind of look at you as a guy friend now. So if you don't want to
Yeah.
be seen as a guy friend, then don't say dude or bro or whatever other words you guys like to say, okay? That sound very guy friendly. They're like guy
more
friendly
like what you
slang.
would call your bros. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Like, don't sit there and like say those names. You know, it's just
If you
weird.
want us to understand that you see us as a friend, go right ahead. But that's like a girl like calling you like, hey girly pop, you know, those little things, hey girly, and you're a guy, you're gonna be like, what? That's what I'm saying. So think about that for a minute. That's just one of my personal icks.
Oh, yeah.
I think that will not change. Like that for me is an ick. Like it's just like
In
a
general,
ick.
though, if you're in a relationship with somebody, like I know some people like it.
I know.
Like I see it, like I mean, you see it sometimes in social media, and like girls let it slip on, and like they don't tell their boyfriends about it. I'm sorry, but that no. Like don't sit there and like lower your standards and be like, oh yeah, like my boyfriend like calls me bro or dude. Like if you don't like it,
Say something.
say something. Don't
And
sit
I'm-
there and be like, oh yeah, it's fine. I guess I'll just let it pass. No.
And I'm gonna say this right now, but if you do openly communicate with that person and say a guy calls you dude and you're dating him, right? And you're like, oh, I don't really like that. And you're not very fond of it, but you're scared to say something because it's something he says quite a lot. So you decide to approach him and say, you know, I wasn't very, you know, comfortable by you calling me dude. I didn't really like that. I didn't really appreciate that, especially that I'm your girlfriend. And he's like, okay, well, I'm not going to change that. And that's, you know, when somebody says they're uncomfortable with something, I think when you're in a relationship with them, you should try your best to improve on that. And try your best to try to come to a compromise and say, I'm not going to do that anymore. Or let's work through this because that made you uncomfortable. I don't want to make you uncomfortable because I care about you. And I value you as a person. I value our relationship. So I'm going to do my best to make you feel comfortable again and not do things that upset you or make you feel less of a person. And I think that if someone argues with you and doesn't try to improve themselves, I'm not saying like you can't expect certain things out of a person, but little things like that. Sometimes little things do kind of upset us or make us feel a little bit about the relationship. I don't really know the right way to feel it, like say it, but I just like, kind of uneasy. And you try coming to a conclusion with that person about that, and they're a little bit like, I'm not going to work on that, or they say they do and they don't, and you tell somebody what I just told you. That's kind of a red flag, because I think that someone should try to improve themselves when they make mistakes. And if they don't try to work through it and fix themselves and improve themselves after making mistakes and taking accountability for their actions, that's not the best person to probably be in a relationship with if you're that type of person who needs someone to compromise with you, in my opinion. What's another red flag or ick that you have? How do you feel about a guy having a lot of girlfriends, or like you're in a relationship with him, he has a bunch of friends that are girls, or maybe he hangs around them and he claims they're just friends, or he texts a bunch of girls? How do you feel about that? Is that an ick or a red flag?
I would say I feel like a lot of like girls get all weird about like their boyfriends, like having like a bunch of girlfriends. But like even maybe guys get like that too, about like girls having like guy friends. But as long as your intentions with those people or you just see them as a friend, and like I would say another thing is like if one of those girls or one of those guys that you were like are very close with, that like maybe you like text or you still hang out with, and you maybe had like a past relationship with them and you don't communicate that to like the person, like your person, I would say that's a little bit of like a red flag right there. Like I know some people like to keep it hush and they're like, oh well, we only dated for like that long or whatever. That person might still like you, and then you're hanging around them and you might end up like, you know what I'm saying, like lead them on a little bit. But I just feel like that's kind of weird if you don't openly say that to like maybe your person. But other than that, if you just see them as a friend and you're just hanging out, I think it's fine. But I mean, it would be a little weird if you were texting them like a lot, like especially like, I don't know, like every day, like a bunch. That's a little weird because like I don't really know why you need to text them. But
Exactly.
other than that, I think it's completely fine. Communicate obviously with the person, if maybe one of those people were like your past ex, or maybe somebody you like had a talking stage with and it didn't work out. But like if you were just friends, I don't really think anything should be wrong with it.
How do you feel about when guys act different around their guy friends when you're around?
I was gonna bring that up. I particularly like, I think it's a little bit of an ick, to be honest, because it's almost like you can't put your ego down. Like this is with guys a lot though, because girls I feel like don't really change when they're with their friends and you like whatever, like your boyfriend's around. Like I don't think anything really changes. But with guys tend to put up their egos when they're with their guy friends. And I 100% get it. Whatever, you want to act cool.
See, but I've noticed it's not even around the guy friends; it's around other guys.
Yeah,
I've noticed that it's not just around the guy friends; it's around other guys. If other guys enter the room, sometimes, like you said, it's a bit of an ego thing.
I don't know if you do that though. Like, trust me, you might end up losing your girlfriend. Like, I don't know. That's just a little.
It's a bit of an ick.
It's an ick. I really do think that's like something that's just kind of like more as immaturity more than anything, because it's like you want to sit there and like put a facade, like almost like they're like, oh, like don't get close to me, like they want to like act all cool and like not like hold your hand, not like act like they're with you. That's just weird.
So you think when a guy acts like he's not with you, it's an ick around his guy friends?
I would say another thing is if they have their girl, like their friends that are girls around, and they don't want to like act like they're dating you, that's a red flag. Like imagine like I don't know, like I've never, I mean it's never happened to me, but like you know what I'm saying, that would
because
just be
why
a little,
do they not, they don't value enough to
like,
show
I
that
saw
they're
like
yours?
an Instagram reel about that, about somebody saying like they were with their boyfriend and like their like ex or something walked by and like the boy just dropped their hand, like they didn't want to act all coupley. That's a red flag.
Oh, that's a
like,
big red flag. Because
obviously, like if they're like friends that are girls around and they don't want to sit there and act like you're dating, obviously they want to act like they're still single because maybe they still
they're attracted to one of those girls, or maybe like one of those
like
girls
the attention that the girl
exactly
gives them.
they like the attention.
No.
If a guy values you, or even a girl values you, she or he is going to make sure that it is known that you are in a relationship with them. Let me make that clear. Even as a girl, girls will do the same thing. If you notice you have a girl, because we are girls, so we can speak for the girls here.
I'll even say that though, even for the girls though, like I don't know if girls do that or like any guys
Some
have
girls
had any
do.
like issues with that, where like the girl just like drops her hand or like doesn't want to act like they're with you when they're like around their guy friends. I would say that's a red flag.
And it's hurtful too,
Oh,
especially like if you're standing there and everything was normal and then someone else comes over and affects the whole situation. It's like, why are you going to let someone else affect us? You know what I mean? How do you feel? Do you think, now this might not be directly at the person you're in a relationship with, but what if their friends have to speak negatively about you to them all the time, or like they try to push them away from you or pull them away from you? Like say you're dating somebody and their friends constantly are like, oh, why are you with them? Or they never want them around you.
Okay, well I would say like if you're like friends or whatever keep telling you, oh, like you're spending too much time with them, this or that, I would think about it for a minute and really see if they're right or if like they're wrong. Because, you know, sometimes people like give more energy to the person that they're dating rather than their friends. And I would make sure to split up that time and make sure they're not wrong or right, you know what I'm saying? And be like, okay, well, you know what I'm saying? So for that,
To balance.
I would think about it. I wouldn't sit there and be like, no, I don't hang around. Like, you know what I'm saying? But in general, if somebody's pushing you away from like the person that you're dating, I would honestly find that person, like if you're dating somebody that maybe isn't like the greatest person, maybe I could see why. But if you're dating somebody that's like, you know,
and I think if
a fine person, then
then it should matter. But I think it really plays an essential role when the person you're dating is influenced by those people. If you're dating somebody who naturally just listens to whatever their friends tell them, and doesn't listen to their gut or listen to how they feel, that's not the best
scenario. If you're not going to talk about it to the person you're dating and you're just going to listen to your friends, you shouldn't be in a relationship.
Exactly.
I'm sorry, but that's just one, like that's a red flag. I find it like immature if you're going to act like that. Like somebody says something negative about you, like your friends say something negative about your relationship or like about the person, they're like, oh, I think you should break up with them. Don't sit there and listen to your friends, because I tend to notice some people do that and they end up screwing something up and they end up fumbling that person because they're like, oh my, that was somebody that I shouldn't have lost because I listened to my friends when I was stupid enough to listen to them. When actually your friends, they might be real friends, but when it comes to relationships, everybody needs to realize your friends, if they're pushing you away from that person and saying negative stuff, it's because if they're not in a relationship, or if they are, when the relationship isn't like as perfect as yours, and they're like, oh, well, like I don't like seeing you happy, this or that, they're obviously jealous. So they're going to want to break you up if they see that you guys are like happy together. You know, and it's like,
well, relationships between two people. So if you're in a relationship with somebody and you're constantly asking your friends to help you and they're influencing your decision,
you shouldn't have to ask your friends to help you with anything.
Then you're not dating your friends. That person's not dating your friends. It's between you two. You need to go off your gut, knowing that person and being able to give them energy, what you expect out of that relationship. Don't go to your other friends and go to other people and say, oh, well, what do you think I should do? Do what you need to do.
Do what you feel like doing.
Yeah,
if you don't feel comfortable like saying what they're telling you to say, then say what you want to say.
Exactly.
And to be honest, I think it's kind of like, I don't know if this would be an ick or red flag. I guess one up saying, but I would say like if they always tell their friends everything, like every single detail about maybe your guys' like issues or problems or like maybe things that bother you, and they feel like, oh, like this or that, like I feel like sometimes it's the guys though. The guys, like, I feel like girls sometimes know that people get jealous and stuff, but I'm going to say this. I mean, it could be on both
don't know. It goes both ways.
I would say though sometimes the boys share too much.
Sometimes girls share a lot though.
Yeah, girls do share a lot though too. But I'm going to say like just in general, if somebody shares a bunch of stuff to their friends and they think, oh yeah, these people have been around for this long and like they're like my best friend. Honestly, you're not it's not like a triangle here where y'all three are dating. You know what I'm saying?
Sometimes you need to keep your thoughts to yourself.
Yeah, like sometimes really think of that because people...
Especially because you don't know what's going to happen in the future. And there could be a scenario where you get in an argument with one of your friends and maybe you said something in the moment you didn't really mean about your significant other. And that person decides, well, this is payback. I'm going to go tell their significant other
I would say another thing is if you get in a fight with your significant other, don't sit there and run off and tell like your family or your friends or your siblings. Keep it to you two until you guys figure it out, because if you guys end up staying together, it's going to kind of look a little stupid if you went around telling all your friends all this negative stuff and then you guys are back together or whatever. That stuff should just be between you two. If you're going to be somebody that's going to share it to a bunch of people, you shouldn't even be dating.
Keep your relationship private. Keep the things that make you happy private.
Like, I don't really remember how it was, but it was like, I guess it's like not having a private relationship, but keeping things private.
Yeah.
Like people know you're dating, but don't sit there and let them know every single little detail of like, oh yeah, I'm hanging out with him or her this day and that day. Let it be. Just keep that between you two. It shouldn't be everybody knowing everything.
As we said, a relationship is between two people.
Okay, I would say another thing. I feel like, I don't know if this is a red flag, but I feel like it's an ick in general if somebody makes a big deal out of posting you and being like, ugh. Like, I feel like, I mean, more of girls, I feel like girls just kind of post, but I don't know. I've seen girls that don't post their boyfriends too, that are like, I don't want to post.
Or girls that don't have social media.
Yeah, but I feel like in general, if like you ask your boyfriend or you ask your girlfriend to post you and they're like, oh, well, like, I don't know. I don't really post that much. I don't know. That's just a little weird. Like, I even, like, seen somebody saying something about that. Like, what's the big deal if you don't post too much? If somebody wants you to post them, what's the big deal? What is it going to affect on you unless you're hiding something?
Well, I do understand that to an extent. As someone who's not really into social media, I don't really have a liking towards it, so I don't really care. If you want to keep things private, I respect that. If you want to keep it where people can see, or you want to just share that with the world and share it with other people that you're in a relationship, great for you.
I'm not saying to post too much. Obviously, keep things to yourself. But, like, in general, though, if, like, I don't know, I find that, like, a little bit of a red flag.
I think it's a red flag when you ask someone to do something for you, or you ask out of something for the relationship, like you have an expectation for something and that person wants to kind of disagree with you on that. You know what I mean? Like maybe there is something you kind of want to do and maybe it's something a bit more public and they're constantly saying no with it. I'm not saying that that person's going to want to do everything you're going to want to do, but if you ask something and you're like, I would appreciate this, like you said, if you ask to be posted and you say, I appreciate that, and that person decides, yeah, but I don't really want to do that. And maybe you already have put the effort in. You already do that. You already make it exclusive that that's the person you're with. And that person doesn't want to reciprocate that. I understand where you're coming from. Because that can regard other things too.
Know. I just find that weird a little bit.
I understand that.
I mean, it's not even me in general, but I just see that sometimes, like people saying that. So that's just weird.
Yeah, I understand that. I definitely think that could be kind of an ick, or not really a red flag, but I think it could be an ick. Like it's a red flag if that person doesn't want to go in public with you.
Talking, I would say I feel like a lot of girls make a big deal out about this. And like at first, you know, I like was kind of like, I don't know if we said this in the last episode, if I agreed that it was okay for guys to like girls posted. I actually think I thought it was okay. But really thinking it through, I don't know. I think I did say that I didn't like it though. But I would just say that's weird. Like, sure, you could follow people, but, like, if you are following a bunch of girls and it's more than...
let me ask you something. Why do you need to like or comment or follow?
You shouldn't be interacting with, like, other girls.
When you already have a girl.
Unless it's siblings and it's families. Or, like, maybe, like, families. I said families. Yeah, maybe families. Family. But, like, cousins and stuff. If it's not anywhere, like, related in that area and you're just, like, liking a girl's post... You should not be sitting there liking and like interacting.
Well, because liking is like almost comparative to encourage. It's like comparative to encourage and supporting that person. Why are you comparing and encouraging and supporting another girl when that's not your girlfriend or even your boyfriend? You don't need to be doing that. You already have one. So why do you need to sit there and be doing that unless that person's not meeting your needs or that's not the right person for you? Why are you doing that? I'm a bit
like
skeptical
you should be
of it
supporting your girlfriend or your like your boyfriend on social media, not other like random people that maybe go to your school or whatever. Like, I don't know. That's just weird.
Another thing that I do find, this is a bit immature. So I guess I don't know if I consider this. This is a bit of a red flag. Like if someone did this, I would find it to be a red flag. Some other people might look at this as like an ick, but I think it's a sense of immaturity. There's those people, not to name names or to like classify these as a type of people, but there's those people that you notice they get in a relationship. The moment that person gets in an argument with that person, or they like maybe like argue, they post, I'm single. Like, why are you doing that? I'm single. That's a red flag right there. I'm going to be honest, because the way you're perceived, it's very immature.
Like I said,
keep things
if
private.
you have a fight with somebody that you're in a relationship with, you should not be exposing it until you really know that either you guys are fine. Then there was no even use. You don't have to tell anybody.
Because if you're in a relationship with someone and the first thing that they do, and then you guys decide to get back together and they say, oh, never mind. It looks stupid. And why are you going to get back together with somebody who's literally acting like that? They're almost like putting you like on a board and saying, oh yeah, 1 minute we're together, 1 minute we're not. Don't do that. That's weird. Keep it to yourself. Mm-hmm. That's disrespectful to the other person you're in a relationship with, first of all. And second of all, it's just plain out immature. Don't act like that. Mm-hmm. And like posting every little thing about that person, like, well, they did this to me, they treat me like this, and then 5 minutes later you get back together with them. You're confusing everyone now. This is just crazy, in my opinion.
I would say another thing is if they always cancel plans. Like, I don't know.
That's kind of like not reciprocating the same amount of energy. Or
like, I mean, if you're on call or something, they're constantly like, oh yeah, like, hold on, like, I'll call you back, like somebody's calling. And like, I don't know, like some people will sit there and be like, oh yeah, my mom's calling. But then all of a sudden, actually they're lying and a girl's calling them. Mm-hmm. Like sometimes if they're always pulling that card, or like, they're like, oh, I can't call this day because like this or that. Like that's just a little weird.